we have the gallery because Antoine worked on it. We have Orchard 2 because I worked on it. And we'll see if there are any topics. Status here. I will start with Orchard 1. So you see not much for last week. Lombic updating a Module.txt. This one from Antoine. Some UI. What is that?
That's the new admin theme.
Oh, I was like, why is Bootstrap in the admin? Okay, okay, so that's the new admin theme, so good job, Antoine. Looks like a minor thing. Admin theme here also from Antoine again. What have you been doing, Antoine? Are you just polishing stuff, doing some progress?
I'm fixing a few issues.
Okay.
So I'm changing on this branch and I'm closing them on the Fipka's repository.
Okay.
Yes.
Gulf file. Why do you? Okay, that's weird. There will be conflicts with the dev branch because these things have been added to the dev branch.
Yes, but there was a SAS 2 times. You see, line 9,
Okay.
line 11. So
Okay. Okay. Probably a match issue. Okay, good.
I think this is when Fipka's merged from the dev branch to his repository. There was this kind of conflict.
Okay, what is YouTube Watch? What is that, YouTube Watch? Okay, nothing important. Just let me know. And this one, so this was reported as a security issue a month ago, maybe a little bit more than that. So the issue here is not that important actually. It's an XSS issue, so you can inject some script into the result of a page. The good thing is that you can only do that if you have access to the DOM, so you can XSS yourself. It's not a big issue, but it's embarrassing. And the issue was that one of the validation messages from the model binding, like when you try to bind a string to an integer, was failing, and the failure returns the value that you're trying to bind to the integers. And this happened on a hidden value. And we are translating this value. And the translation accepts HTML and doesn't re-encode it, and it returns a localized string. So the idea is that we should not translate strings from unknown sources or from dynamic values, okay, always the same issue. And the solution is to actually encode the error and pass it as a localized string. This way, what will be rendered is the HTML we want to render. Also, this only happens with custom forms in a widget. Okay, this is specific for the widget in a custom form. So this is a deprecated module. So this is kind of this is not unsafe code right now in the current installations. So I fixed it on 1.10x and closed the issue. That's it about the status. Questions about this? Good. Orchard 2. Orchard 2, 7 days. We talked about how to be able to reuse code, so I was trying to use things like this. Okay, but I made it better in the meantime. We'll see. What time was it? This was... Okay, that's well. we had a meeting, so it's not possible. But so let me see. This one is not important. This one, yes, this is what I was working on last week, the roles module. So I created a roles module to be able to manage roles, like in Orchard 1. This is the first one. Then this one, okay, we talked about it already, the processing engine. So I deferred tasks. Okay, we talked about it, so I won't do that, and defer task and some refactoring to call it IDeferredTaskEngine. Okay, defer task being a way to execute some code right after the request, like to delay or defer some things after the request, so that all the modules can do something, and then after that we can execute something once all the modules have done some specific things. Renaming IProcessingEngine to IDeferredTaskEngine. So just a renaming here, and that's it. Dependencies, registrations. Yes, this is very important. It's not obvious at first. So in Orchard we have many components which can be registered as many providers, like content display handlers. We can have many of them. We will have many of them. So when we register them, we should not call try add something, but add something. Try add will only add the registration if there was no other registration for the same interface. This is useful when, for instance, we have some defaults, but a user could decide to inject something else. So the user will register something, and then we call try add. Just in case nothing was registered, we'll register our own. But if something was registered, try add will not do anything. But in the case of handlers or anything that is which has a cardinality more than 1, we want to call add something, because we always want to register it. So it's adding just another one on the same interface. So when we resolve IEnumerable of something, we'll get all the instances. So this was just that, and apparently it was in many locations. This is a use code. What else? Nothing interesting here. Yep, just fixing some registration everywhere. Okay, good. And removing some things we don't need. So nothing interesting here. Duplicate rendering, yes, probably because too many registrations of the same thing, so it will be rendered twice. Okay, yes, because it was rendered by the iDependency marker inheritance and also by this explicit registration. So I will have registered twice the descriptors. So that's fixed. Adding IShellStateManager and its implementation. So this was the biggest thing of last week on this thing. The shell state manager is an event handler which triggers event when the features are enabled, installed or disabled or uninstalled. So the default thing here is, and it was depending on IDeferredTaskEngine. This is what I made this one first. So where is that? The IShellStateManager. So IShellStateManager, you can see the this is to update. Okay, this is to update the state to one. There is a new state, but there is another class which does that. So shell state manager. This is just to update the feature, and there is the shell state updater. There is an event at some point. Where is that? Where is my event? Yes, this one, feature event handler. Okay, so this one will trigger all the feature event handlers, and you see enabled state, update enabled state, update installed state. Installed is when the feature is first enabled. Install state, update enabled state, update installed state, installed is when the feature is first enabled. Install state, install is when the feature is first enabled. Install state, install is when the feature is first enabled. Install state, install is when the feature is first enabled. Install state, install is when the feature is first enabled. So this was Yep. Okay, good. So nothing interesting here, but the shell state needs something particular, which is it needs to store all the features and their current state. Are they? So the goal of the shell state manager, it has a state. It's to store a tree of all the states for all the features, so that whenever we change the state of a feature, we can know if this is the first time or not it was enabled, to trigger installed or uninstalled. Because we enable a feature, if we don't have this state, we just can say, oh, feature enabled, but we don't know if it's the first time or not, or the last time or not when we install it. So this is why we need a state, and it's stored this way in database. Let me show you. It's much simpler than in Orchard.1. In Orchard.1 we had many records, and now we just have features. This one, this is a shell state. I should be able to do that here. See features, and for each feature, install state, up, and so on. Okay. This way we know they have been set up by the past. And this is just one document and one query to load everything. Am I missing anything? Okay. This one, so shell state manager, shell state coordinator, it has been commented out, so I assume it will be, oh, it's there. Nothing interesting. Setup event handler, nothing interesting. Setup service. Setup service. Oh yeah, the change on the setup service is to also, during the setup, process all the deferred tasks once all the default features have been enabled during the setup. And yep, so that's good. And this one is nothing interesting, just renames. Okay, good. Harvesting role permissions and feature install events. So you remember here I was working on roles, which depends on feature install event, which depends on shell state manager, which depends on deferred tasks. This is why building modules will help into implementing all the features that are required for all these modules. So now harvesting role permissions. So the idea is that once the a feature is installed, we will get all the permissions from the permissions provider and update the list of available permissions, or actually the default permissions for all the roles. So for instance, if we have a permissions class like here, we have this permission, manage users, which is rendered by get permissions. So the harvesting of permissions will call get permissions to list all the permissions and assign the default permissions to every role, default roles. So in this case, we have a role updater, which is the same thing as in Orchard.1, which implements iFeature event handler. And when the feature is installed, we load all the permission providers and define the default permissions for all the roles. Okay, this is exactly like it was done in Orchard.1. This one, rename recipes to be abstraction. This is Nick. So Nick did some refactoring on the recipes and moved them in the abstraction module. So, which means next week the recipes module is done, Nick. That would be good. This one, implementing IStartup support. So what I did is let me check if this is related. Not really. So what I did here is I removed the iModule thing, which was trying to mimic the autofact behavior from Orchard.1, and I added an IStartup instead interface. So this interface actually already exists in .NET Core, but only for RTM. It was added between RC2 and RTM. So I made my own so far, but we can use the official one later, you see, to do after RTM resolve IStartup using application container. So the IStartup contains configure services and configure. The idea is that every module can have, so it's a bad example here. Let's use admin. I think the naming is better. Yes, every module can have a startup class, okay, that can implement IStartup or inherit from startup base. And you can configure services, and you get a service collection, and you can register all the services you want. And in modules, you can either use the dependency injection utilities like iDependency, iSingleton, or the scoped attributes, or you can implement this one and register the services explicitly this way. You can also define your routes. This one is much better than before. Look at that. Remember the routes providers we had. Let me show it. It's very important. This one. You remember this class? We have it all. No, not this one. Where is that? Routes, yes, this one. So we have this kind of class everywhere in Orchard.1 and in Orchard.2, which is an iRoute provider, get routes, and we can return a route. The idea is that we want to register routes per tenant, okay, based on the features which are enabled and not globally. So we have an iRoute provider, and we define the area, the default values, and the constraints, okay, which also contains the area for the rendering of the URL. So it's kind of cumbersome to type. And now with the configure method, like in any ASP.NET app, ASP.NET Core app, we have the routes, and we can just call map route. And we can also call map area route, which is from the MVC package, I assume. And there you can say the name of the route, the area, only once, because this one will be used to define the defaults and the constraint, the template, like this is the route itself, admin slug, which controller and which action. And with just that, we can register it for the single tenant. So this is much easier. And this thing is called for each tenant where the feature is enabled. And it can be feature, like Orchard feature, okay? So this is the goal. You can define a startup for each of your features, which will define the services, the routes, and the middlewares. Because also with this commit, I removed the middleware provider, like we had the route provider. So you can just say now, example in the demo module, here, the demo project configures multiple routes, and in the end says, oh, use middleware. So we don't need to create an iMiddleware provider and middleware registrations. So this is much easier also. And it works. So this is simpler to create a new module, I think. And that's about it. And I refactored all the modules to take that into account, like the setup here. The users, you see, even for authentication, the cookies, they will be done with the startup, getting the options and setting the middlewares for the cookie authentication. So this is nice. Simplifying tenant resolution for now. Yeah. So the match route, I improved the code by also removing some complexity, and it still works fine. There is just one standard that is no more supported right now, which is a star mapping, but there is a command to explain how to do that. But I made it simpler because I worked on the routing. There were some issues with it was not really optimized, so I optimized the routing for multi-tenancy. But this one is just about refactoring running share table. This one is about optimizing the routing for multi-tenancy. There is much less code and simpler to understand and faster. So the idea is that not this one. The Orchard router middleware. The Orchard router middleware is the middleware which will resolve the current tenant, create a per tenant pipeline of middlewares, because each tenant can have its own middlewares. Yep, and this is the one instantiating all the IStartup to call configure on the current tenant. So we are creating a fake app builder, like in any ASP.NET app, but one per tenant. And then we are calling into the startup classes here to configure the pipeline with custom middlewares and custom routes. And by the way, we are adding the default route, which is the module, controller, action, and ID. Okay? And this is where also the routes are then prefixed, because what is nice here is like Orchard 1, when you map the area, you don't have to mention which prefix for the tenant. This is when the startup class will be evaluated, that the route will be updated with a prefix and then published on the tenant route. Okay? So this is better routing for multi-tenancy. And then I worked on the roles again. So in this case, I made 2 handlers to support the Anonymous and Authenticated roles. I refactored these ones because I made some progress, so I won't show you this code. It's not important here. What is there here? Yes, when the super user is created into the setup event handler of the users module, when the super user is creating, I'm assigning the administrator role to the user. If you remember in Orchard 1, when we create the super user, he's marked as a super user, so he's got all the rights. But when you go edit it, he doesn't have any role. So now I'm making it an administrator by default also. So this is not important, and this is just to revert a change I did to check that the user has view content. This is important because default users, so the view content permission is given to anonymous users, okay? But it only works if we support the anonymous user permission. So I will show you later. Assigning role claims to the user on login. And this one I should change actually. Yep, this is to, yeah, I will change, so I won't talk about it. Caching roles, so I'm adding caching in the roles manager so that whenever we want to check for role and permissions, the documents containing all the permissions for each role is cached. You see, memory cache, get or create, and adding a signal, same thing as Orchard 1, and adding a serial so that we can know if the roles document has changed. This is important for the cache context. Like here, nope, not this one. Not this one. Improving role cache context, where is that? Oh, this one, the cache context. Okay, this is this one, so we don't care. Checking implied permissions. Yes, this is the big change which made the first commit, the commit with anonymous users unnecessary, because I removed these files here. So the change is about making a roles permissions handler, which is an authorization handler, which is a class in ASP.NET Security, which will check the current user. If the current user has not been granted the permission, then we will try to check what are the required permissions for, what are the granting permissions for the required permission, because you can remember there are implied permissions, like manage own content is implied by manage content. Okay, so when we check for manage own content, then it also works with manage content. This is why we execute this one, to get all the permissions that the user can have to be granted the current permission. We check all the roles from the user, and by default we had the user with anonymous roles, because all the anonymous permissions are inherited by any other user. Then if he is authenticated, we add the authenticated role, and then we add all the roles that he has in his claims, so all the saved roles for the user. Then we have all the roles to examine, and we can just get the role from the DB or from the cache and check for all the permissions for this role. And if any of these permission is one of the granted permissions, then we just say succeed. Okay, so this is the role permissions handler, which is exactly the same almost as in Orchard 1. Same logic to inherit all the implied by permissions. And then I worked on the views for the roles, just to be able to edit the roles for a user and edit the permissions for each role. So let me show you quickly. Are there any questions in the meantime? Are very silent. Starting. So you will see, so this is the home page. There is no home page, so that's why we have a 4.4. If I go to home index, which is available to everyone, I will try to see also if I'm anonymous here. I am anonymous because I have a login button. Logged user, nothing. The tenant is default. So if I go login, it will show the user the login. If I go to content display 25, okay, so you see content display 25, I can see it even though there is in the contents module the item controller, the display method. Here there is authorize async view content. Okay, so the admin anonymous user has the view content permission because I'm anonymous. Now, if I want to go to the admin, I want to go to the admin side. Let me see. Yes. So this is a filter which will check if the controller starts with admin and will apply the admin attribute, okay, to define that we are in the admin zone. Then there is this one, which is whenever the action is executed, if the admin attribute is applied, then it will try to authorize the access admin panel permission. And the anonymous user doesn't have the access admin panel, like in Orchard 1. So if I try to go in admin, put a breakpoint here, but it will redirect me to the authentication, okay, and then I can log in, and if it works, I'm redirected to the admin, okay, and then I can see I've not put them in the correct section, but that's fine. I can list the users like before, and I can go on roles, which is a new UI, list all the roles, okay, which are registered, add a new role. This is not implemented, and I can go edit. This is just rendered using the view from Orchard 1, but the logic is there, and you can see all the roles that the administrator has. And let's check. Anonymous, edit. The anonymous user can view all content, and that's about it. That's it. Okay, so it's rendered. It's not finished. It doesn't work if I change them, but at least I can render the allow and effective permission. Effective meaning it is implied by at least one of the other allowed permissions. Okay, so this works. This is very important to have security in place, because who would like to deploy a website if there is no security at all, even a blog? Cool. That's where I stopped, but I think there is good progress here. The roles module start to being interesting. All the pipeline is implemented. Questions? Okay, no questions, no comments.
I might need your help afterwards on some Orchard 2 stuff, if that's okay.
You have what? Sorry?
I might need some help on Orchard 2.
Oh,
I can't get a module loaded, and I don't know why.
okay.
But we can do that after this meeting
Okay.
if you're free.
Sure, no worries. I'm available. I'm working until tomorrow.
If you're available.
Okay, that's it. So gallery. If there is no questions, I might come back on also to after. Gallery. So Antoine worked on the gallery, and we deployed it last Thursday during triage, actually, because we were the only two. Janos joined but left, maybe because he heard us talking French. He was scared. So Antoine implemented the sort and pager. Okay. So now you can, by default, it's the most popular, but you can sort by newest. And we can see new modules. Okay, so this is fixed. This was a request by many. Even the paging works, and it responds to the JavaScript events. Beautiful. You just change and you don't need to submit. Yep. Just the order of the alphabetical order doesn't work correctly. Still need to figure out why. That's weird, but there must be an explanation. We'll find. So that's the update. Same thing on the themes. Nothing special. If we go to the newest, okay, you see, it's beautiful. Progress. Okay, another question. Topics. I have a topic. Does anyone have topics to talk about? Questions?
What about a harvest?
Again? Sipke. We talked about it last week. You asked a question already. And Sipke, you were not there. I mentioned, is Sipke still here? I'm not sure. Yes, he's here. Yeah, I mentioned that. I mentioned yesterday, last week, Sipke, that you had sent me some notes and some ideas, and I had to answer them. But so far, the most advanced plan is from Sipke, which is to do it in Miami or around Miami. Someday around September, I think you looked at. And
yeah, around September, and I've been asking for a couple of quotes, but there was a miscommunication because they thought that I was trying to book hotel rooms for all of the guests, which is not the case. So I need to send them another email with a request for proposal.
Okay, yeah, preferred price for the attendees, and usually if you do the meeting in an hotel, most people will stay in the hotel, so that's also
exactly. Yeah, and that's what I communicate as well. Yeah,
and we could get the percentage of people staying in the same hotel from the previous ones, at least from Alicante, but I would expect like 75% at least stay in the same hotel if it's not that expensive. Yeah, if it's the average price, that's fine. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good. So yeah, that's the only. Is what it was, Russell, right? Was the question?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. That's what we have today. I will favor some date, which is if it's in a warmer region, it should be cold everywhere else, so that it is more an incentive to go there. Like, I don't know, November when it's raining in Seattle or in Lille or whatever northern countries. So this way people can say, okay, let's take some vacation and go to Florida and enjoy it. And it's even better if it's during the kids' vacations, because then you can come with your family if you have a family. And then you can mix work and family time, so it's even better. Look at Alicante. We had many people coming with kids at Alicante. Good. Kids and family, just to take vacation with husband and wife.
Well, traveling from Houston to Florida, that's what I classify.
Yeah, for you, you don't care. Maybe you want the opposite, but yeah, for the rest of the world, it might be important. At least you will get the ocean, which you don't have in Houston, right?
Yes, the Galveston is not what I would classify as a beach.
Have you ever been, Russell? I don't think you've ever been to a harvest, right?
No, I wanted to go last year, but they balked at it. But I've already told them that we're going this year.
Okay. Good. Questions?
An observation, if you will. It would seem that Orchard version 2 is appearing to be the next version. Because I've heard nothing about 1.11.
That's wrong. We have a roadmap. We have goals. I know 2 things I need to do. Let me show you. Actually, I thought about it this morning. I will merge Chris's pull requests for the Glimpse integration. Because some people are already using it and they are fine with it. They say it works, so it's validating the feature is okay. Roadmap. Orchard 1.11, Glimpse, I will do it because this is waiting for me. And this we don't have. Daniel is back, and Daniel's back is back. So maybe one day we'll have a new base theme. I haven't heard from Steve for the new website, but it's independent from 1.11. But yes, if we have the new admin theme ready, Glimpse integrated, just that. I don't know about the deployment feature. Zipcode, do we have any news? I think there was a branch for that.
Yeah, there's a branch for that, and George asked for my help to resolve some of the issues, but I haven't gotten around to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so remove the cloud services. This is not a new feature, this is breaking change, but this is sanitizing the code. Yeah, as long as we have Glimpse and the new admin theme, we could say ship 1.11 without any issue. And new base theme and deployment will be a bonus if we have them, or will be part of 1.12. So we have big features coming. These things could be done if anyone wants to tackle them. Wesley and Jamie have worked on most of these things here. I have some code to integrate unless they do that. But there is not so much to add after that. There are not big modules that we are waiting for. Everything here is listed. I don't see any other big modules we need. So it's just improvements and maintaining it. This is mostly also why I'm working on Orchard 2. The big stuff to do is on Orchard 2 right now. But yeah.
The identity providers, I just finished porting the Active Directory integration to 1.10.1. So
what do you mean porting? The one that Wesley has done?
There was one that worked for 1.8, and I port, and that was in the gallery.
Gallery. Wesley,
it's an older version.
What's radio something? GitHub.com radio. What's your name, Wesley?
Yeah, Radio Systems
Radio
Corporation.
Systems something.
Hold on.
This one should be easy to integrate if you want to work on that, Russell. So Wesley and Jamie Or did you? Okay, thank you. So Wesley and Jimmy work for Radio Systems Corporation, and from what I know is the invisible fence thing, at least. And they made a module to support Azure Authentication. Okay, and so this works. They are using it. What I have also is some code here, an updated version from a Microsoft developer who also made the synchronization for the roles, so that the roles in AD and Orchard are synced, at least when you create the user, when it imports the users. So we just need to integrate the two and make an Orchard module with that. This is this thing. That will work.
I have not messed with the Azure version because most of our clients have internal websites, or they're using normal
I see.
domain-based.
No Azure one. Okay.
And
It's different then.
so there is an older version in the gallery that worked with 1.181. However, it would not function at all in 1.10.1, so I finished rewriting it, and basically cleaning up the code and fixing
Okay.
bugs or mistakes.
Well, feel free to create a new package at least, maybe even with the same name plus 1.10 or something like that,
Yeah.
just so that people can find it.
Yeah, that's on my list of things to do.
Okay, good. Thanks. Yeah, if anyone wants to work on the INT providers, let me know. I will share the code with you. Wesley, if you want to integrate this code also, let me know. I will share it with you.
Yeah. Most likely, I'm going to check with managers and whatnot, workload here, and see if that's agreeable to them. But yeah, I'd like to work on it. We'll see if I can make time for it. And I'll get in touch with you on that.
Also, one of the things on my list to build or to port is to build a two-factor authentication ability, maybe using Google Authenticator for website authentication.
Okay. Yep, that's part of this line, INT providers. So this is also why in Orchard 2 I'm using directly INT providers, so we can have these features. And this is why we have, you see, these things enabled. Well, it's just that if you want to use cookie authentication and you don't have these options, it doesn't work, but at least it can work whenever other module will register the correct middlewares and services. Good. Yeah, but yeah, 1.11, we have already something working on to ship 1.11. We can merge glimpse, we can have the new admin theme, and then we'll check for the bonus features. We'll see. That's it.